Hi, my name is Dhalla-Kim. I'm a passion coach, and this is Firestart Chat. Firestart Chats are intimate conversations with people who have and are clarifying their passions for change. We'll hear their stories, their experiences, and tools on how they've been able to do that. Today, I'm so excited to be talking to Karlyn Percil, the CEO of KDPM Consulting Group and the founder of SisterTalk Leadership and Wellness Academy. Her motivation to improve our society stems from her experience as a Black leader and 23 years as a bank executive facing discrimination, racial biases, and emotional attacks. Her passions for change is inspired by her belief that inclusion is not a trend, but a verb. It requires action. And she is a dear friend of mine, a teacher, a mentor, a guide. And I'm so excited to be learning from her again today through Firestart Chat. And on this talk, she shares how she taps into her ancestral wisdom for guidance and for dreaming bigger into her purpose. All right, so we've both got our incense. So I've got this incense from Korea.
Love. I have this beautiful incense from handcrafted in India. And it was a special gift from Gargi and her family. She started off as a mentee, and she's enriched my life in so many different ways. It's called Tulsi.
Okay, so I'm gonna light this and set my intention for this conversation. And I'll begin by saying my intention with this conversation is to co-create a virtual space with you and play with you and go deeper with you and learn from you, as I always do, and amplify your deep expertise and knowledge and wisdom, which have guided me to where I am today. And in some ways, I want to pay it forward to so many people who I know can and have been benefiting from your leadership. And so my desire is to continue amplifying your knowledge.
So it is. Thank you. And my intention for today is to be a vessel for what's needed the most and to co-create magic with you. Every time we speak and we get in intentional time together, so much magic happens during and also after. And it's such an honor to do this particular conversation with you. And my intention is to slow down and notice the joy, the play, the ancestral energy that's around us, and also to notice how guided and supported we are.
Thank you.
Yes.
Speaking of noticing, what are you noticing these days? Like, I'm noticing so much around me where I'm confronted with things that I need to heal and grow around, but I'm curious what you're noticing in your life.
Such a good question. I'm noticing where I'm being invited to deepen my practice. And one of the gifts that you've given me is how to be intentional with the time I give things. I'll never forget the first time, I think I shared something with you and you said, I'll get back to you after I have the time to read this, or I'm paraphrasing, you said it in a much more beautiful way. And it just really gave me so much space and permission to take my time with things. Because as a Pisces and Cancer water sign, I'm also a fire sign in African cosmology. Sometimes it's like, there's so much that I can see and I absorb and I can understand. And it's like 1,000 messages going on in my head all the time. And sometimes I struggle in terms of what do I give my attention to, like fully, right? And you have taught me to learn to be present with just everything, right? So my invitation, I notice in this time, is to deepen my practice with taking my time to do the things that needs to be done, even the things I don't know that needs to be done. So that deepening that practice around self-care, around silence, around using my voice, asking for what I want, strengthening my boundaries, articulating my boundaries better. So there's a deepening practice. I think that might be my theme word for next year, right? Indulging in the silence, quiet, joy, sorrow, whatever it is, so that I can truly understand my capacity as a human being.
Mm. Ooh, delicious.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? Because I find that when I try to deepen my practice around slowing down and being more present and being able to be in solitude, I often contend with this other voice that's like, you're not getting stuff done. What are you doing? Money, money, money. Get out there. And so I feel that tension, even though I'm trying not to think about it as one or the other, I can't but
Yep.
emotionally feel that. So what do you do?
So this is where it's a further invitation to deepen your practice by calling onto your ancestors. So sometimes I call on my African goddesses, right, to guide me. And honestly, Shills, it's a practice for you to notice that, give it, that's why I'm saying indulge in, even if the joy, the sorrow, the pain. Notice that, cry for the unbottling or the unraveling of that white body supremacy culture of perfectionism and urgency, and it must be done right away, and leverage that as an opportunity for you to deepen your faith and your ancestral wisdom, and the fact that you are already supported and guided. You don't need to. And again, it's not easy. Certain days, the anxiety is a little bit louder, but again, it's all a practice. So it's to notice it, and then, okay, call on your higher self. I named my higher self because it made it easier for me to call on her when I needed her, and deepen your connection to her. Sometimes you might need to sit with the anxious one to fully understand her message, because sometimes, remember, she doesn't have language. I remember when we did my inner child practice with you, you showed me, like, we were holding hands and we're going into the house and it was so bright and it was sunny. So I've been leveraging also that image as well to soothe and calm my anxious one, so that I can strengthen my relation and connection to my higher self.
What's her name?
Azayaso.
Oh, and how did that name come about?
My grandmother's on my dad's side energy was very strong during, the murder of George Floyd and over the last 2 years. And I remember I was by the lake, by the water, on the grass, and I don't know where it came from, but this exercise of what is my emotional inheritance from my grandparents, and it was coming up a lot. And I noticed that. So my grandmother's name is Nelza. My name Karlyn, K-A-S, so S-A is also coming from my grandmother's name, and Yazo is a combination of two of the goddesses from African deities that I embody, I follow, I feel called to a lot, is a combination of their initials as well.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel her here. Oh, yeah.
She's here. She's here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you've taught me so much about ancestral guidance and ancestral wisdom, and how for you, ancestral wisdom is what helps us connect to our true selves. And I'm wondering, given your career experience, where you went from 23 years of being a banking executive to transitioning into this different path, one that is more true to you, how at that point in time did you tap into ancestral wisdom, if during that time you did?
So here's what I learned on the journey. Sometimes the tapping in isn't always conscious, right? Like with the 4 stages of learning, we have conscious competence, unconscious incompetence, and you know what you don't know what you don't know. But I think all of us at a point in our lives, we did something that we felt connected to, even if we didn't deeply understand why we did or we were connected to that thing. Like, for example, you can't see it right now, I have this tattoo, this Andrinka symbol tattoo on my back. And it's the one it talks about perseverance and walking on fire. Like that's the whole analogy of someone, he who walks, it's called Hey Young, I'm totally messing it up, but it calls he who walks or she who walks on fire. And fast forward to, I would say in the last 3 years that I really created the space for me to read, and not just read, but pause. If something says, hey, here's an invitation for you, integrate into your day-to-day, I pause and I shut the book and I just stay on that chapter for a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it needed. And over the last 2 years, I realized how much I have been guided unconsciously by that ancestral wisdom. So much so that the symbol, and when I look at our African medicine wheel, which is highly influenced by the West African, the Dagara culture, I learned that and our birth year is what determines your element. And we all have connections, regardless where you come from a cultural, ethnic, and perspective. We all have connections to fire, air, water, and earth. And in African cosmology, it's fire, water, earth, mineral, and nature. And then here I am fast forwarding and finding out that I am a fire element from the African medicine wheel, from the African cosmology perspective. So it was such a beautiful connection, which deepened my connection to, I'm like, why this particular symbol? I don't know why, but I was just drawn to it. So you know how Dr. Clarissa Pintes, she talks about in Women Who Walk with Wolves, she talks about trusting that intuition. It's a gift that has been given from birth. For me, life is a practice of trusting that intuition, no matter how deep or connected we are to that intuition and to that trust. And Ian Levinson talks a lot about that in her book, One Day My Soul Opened Up. She's like, we're never out of trust. We should stop saying we don't trust ourselves. And that really resonated with me because she said, trust is never I'm gone. It's always there. It might be broken in the sense of the expression of it, right? But it's always there. So if we walk around with the belief that trust is always there, that I'm always guided, it means that the things that I have around me, that ancestral connection is there. It's always there. But in this modern world that we live in right now, we don't always recognize the cultural cues. We don't always recognize it, especially when we look at the master narrative. The master narrative is not rooted in ancestral wisdom. It has moved to a very supremacy model, whether that's elitism, classism, all the other isms that we have. So understanding that ancestral wisdom guidance is always there for us and is always with us. And it's up to us now to create that space. And when I say space, I don't mean that you need 6 months to go and sit under the sun, in Tuscany or, or in Italy, or go to the Caribbean and sit on the beach for you to download it. Life gives us an opportunity every single day through our thoughts, our behavior, the people we surround ourselves with, the time we take to take care of ourselves, to dress ourselves. So many opportunities for us to impart that knowledge, or also to just deepen our connection to it because it's already there.
Oh,
it's
what's so
interesting. And if you have a passion coach like Shelby, she really helps you to dive into that connection. And that is the magic of you as a passion coach. I mean, when we did our passion work, oh, man, it was such a gift. And it's not a gift that I can put in, in terms of the currency, in terms of the physical currency of exchange. You gave me the whole wealth model. And that's what's great about connected leaders as yourself, right? You give us wealth, not just from society's very narrow lens of financial or, currency, but currency in terms of understanding, your connection to self, understanding your connection to your passion, and the expression of that through your purpose. It's such a gift because so many of us are walking around in life through a deficit lens, thinking that we need to find our purpose or we need to look for it, when really your purpose, you were born with your purpose. You were born with it, like it's in you. It's just a matter of, I think sometimes the purpose deficit comes from a place of, because you're bored in one area or one lane of your purpose expression. And for me, that was my role at the bank. Like I had already done what I was supposed to do there. And I was so bored, but I saw it as imposter. It shows up sometimes like imposter syndrome, and I don't know. I need to work harder to get to that next level. Or I need to, all those different cues we use to determine success that has nothing to do with our whole life success, but it's just one very narrow. But we use that to color our whole lives. So then we create this hustling for worthiness and belonging, when really it's a matter of unlearning the things that are not aligned with our, ancestral wisdom, guidance, legacy, whatever language you want to use. And to recognize that, okay, wait, I just need more help and guidance because I've done everything I needed to do in that particular area of my life. So here comes Shelby, passion coach, to help me to understand that, so then I can now deepen my expression of my passion, because this current table I'm at, the meal has been served, you're full, you can't eat anymore. So now you're either bored or you're underutilized. So your body is giving you that wisdom, telling you, hey, it's time to move. And it's time for you now to express in a different way, or in some cases, a different role.
Okay, can we go deeper there? So when you say the body gives you signs, it's telling you things. Can you tell me more about what that experience felt like for you?
For me, the work of Gabor Mate, the body keeps score. Oh gosh, I love his research and work. And again, the body is so wise. And this whole concept of we were born with everything we need really speaks to that. Because even emotion is a bodily sensation. So meaning that, we keep giving so much credit to our technology, our phones, and it can do all those cool things. The most powerful, I call it AI, authentic intelligence there is out there, we carry it. Right? It's in us. And it's not just in us. We have the most amazing crew or squad of supporters in the elements of life and creation. Fire, air, water, earth, nature, mineral. It's right there for us, right? We have our breath. We have the practice of rituals and traditions. We have cultural and community capital. Right? We have people we can look up to. Like I was saying earlier, I feel so honored I can have this depth of conversation with you and some of the, I have the most amazing warriors in my inner circle that I can speak to about everything. I don't have to lower my consciousness. I don't have to lower my Black consciousness, right? I can speak at my truth. I can talk to you about misogyny. I can talk to you about what Black women go through. I don't have to minimize myself because I feel like you don't have the capacity for it, right? We also have ancestral traditions that was left behind, both documented through the written word, but also orally as well. There are a lot of things from our families as well. We don't always know why we do it, but all of that is part of our, community wealth, or our cultural wealth, or our cultural capital. And it's up to us to really understand that. And now from the embodiment perspective, when you try to internalize or in some ways express that in this modern day society that we're in, you will find a bit of this cognitive dissonance, right? Where you'll be like, I don't know, it's like the purple cow, right? I keep telling folks, be the purple cow. You have to be the purple cow, because how else will we get those different expressions? I call it like ancestral culture creators. That's what I've been calling some of my friends and a lot of us who are in this practice, like yourself. Because when I get that emotional, data that says that, oh, I feel uncomfortable, or ooh, this feels, and again, the research shows the signs behind emotions, joy and anxiety can reside in the same place, or can feel like the same thing. And this is why it's good for us to pay attention to our inner notifications, right? The same way you look at your inbox on Instagram, we have tons of unread inner notifications where our body box becomes so full, Shills, that now it has resulted in this physical pain, right? You can't move your neck. You can't move your body. Your hair is falling out. Our skin shows us what's going on the inside. We have dis-ease in our bodies, whether that's through fibroids or heart disease, cancer, whatever you call it. It shows up. So that ability for us to be present with our body inbox, it's such a powerful tool, and also a guidance system that can help guide us towards our authentic truth. Did I answer your question?
You did. And can I just reflect back something? I know you know this about you, but I love your brilliance in bringing these complex topics into these like metaphors, analogies, and frameworks like inner notifications, and there are unread messages. That is brilliant. And I love when you say emotions are data. I've used that. I've talked about your work as it relates to your expertise around that. And I think it is so important that we move away from this, again, binary thinking where, oh, emotions are here and rational data is here. It's actually, no, it's the same. And you've been teaching us that. So thank you for sharing that. And also, as you were talking, what came up for me is, as I'm listening to my inner notifications and there's unread messages, and some of them I don't want to look at. So I'm like, uh-oh, what is it going to tell me? And then I read it. And then now I have to do something about it because it's a truth that I can't ignore anymore. And so do you have tools and tips around how do you move through the fear to first open up that message? But then once you read it and you hear and see the truth and it's undeniable, and it may mean ruptures and change in relations, in context, in decisions. And that's also very scary for many. I mean, I'll speak for myself. That's very scary. So do you have any tools that you've used for those two fears in that space?
Oh, such a good reflection and question. And thank you for that. Okay, where do I go with this? Okay, what's coming up for me, the place I'll focus on is this. We have been conditioned and taught that even the awareness of this, like the whole idea of, confusion. I always say confusion is the beginning of clarity. It's an invitation, right, for deeper clarity. Because confusion means that I'm holding two different thoughts. They may not necessarily be conflicting, but you're at that road. So when those inner notifications, those unread messages show up, it really gives us an opportunity for us to deepen our trust with ourselves. Because anything that comes up for you, it comes up because you're strong enough to deal with it, even if in the moment you may not feel so. But in the moment where you don't feel so, acknowledgement of that thing is enough. And I want us to take us back. So at the center of white body supremacy is urgency, perfectionism. And really, our culture is based on shame. It's rooted in shame. Everything is based on you being that perfect, quote unquote, personal thing that fits the master narrative. And if it doesn't, then it means you feel like you're outside of the box. And we feel like, well, I don't fit in or I don't belong, right? That's the language we use. Going back to that awareness of this, chill, sometimes that's all you need in the season because that's all you have capacity for. So the first is giving ourselves permission to acknowledge our truth, because especially if I'm speaking to, Black and women like us, Asian, Indigenous, and so forth, we do not have a lot of spaces where we can give ourselves the benefit or permission to acknowledge our full truth. Imagine we continue to do that in our personal lives. What's going to end up happening? A shell of who we are or who we can become is what we're operating on. And we can't operate on exhaust fumes, right? You can operate on fumes. At some point, you're exhausted and you run out of capacity to do anything. Like sometimes just even getting out of bed is a chore, right? Because you don't have, what is the point, right? That existential dread becomes a daily mental and emotional battle. And again, we know emotional conflict or data turns into physical pain. So at some point, you're so exhausted, you literally and physically cannot move. So the first is understanding that awareness of that inbox, that emotional inbox is one. And know that awareness that you have in the language to articulate it, or even the awareness to say, hey, I feel it, I see it. Whew, I don't know if I can go there yet, but I see it. That is a huge win, because awareness is the first step. And this is why in the success planner, we define success on a holistic definition of success. So under the Thrive Wellness Center, we have a section for emotions, right? Identifying your emotions, or maybe spiritual. What do you need for your emotional care? And there's a column for you to just notice that. Or even in the habit tracker, you can start by saying, you know what, this month, I want to focus on where my emotional data comes in. Maybe you want to deepen your relationship with anxiety, what it's teaching you, or maybe it's joy, or maybe it's love, whatever it is. And for the next 30 or 31 days, when you are present with it, just notice it. Give yourself a check mark. I noticed it showed up here. Huh, interesting. I noticed that, when it shows up, I actually go into fetal position and I kind of minimize. So I don't feel safe when that, oh, interesting, right? So your emotional T, and you know me, I love acronyms. So understanding your emotional T, I say would be the first step. And with that, recognition is the awareness. So T stands for, T is your thoughts. And your thoughts are not just thoughts, and it could be a word, it could be a story. We all have a default story. For me, my default emotional data was worry. Even when things were good and things are going, I was still like, oh, okay, but after that, will I get another contract? But will it work out? And will like I have all the, and it's like, Karlyn, let's back up. How about we just focus on being present? The thought that we have right now, or we need to embody or to hold space for, is that I am grateful I get an opportunity to express my purpose through this particular, for example, my Leap to Equity program, or through the success system, or whatever it is. The second one is emotion and energy. So T, we have our thoughts. Now we have the emotional energy, that emotional data. And for when we're doing this in an exercise, I encourage clients to draw out your body, an outline. And you can do this in your For Your Notes section and the Success Planner. If you don't have the Success Planner, you can download a free month on thesuccesssystem.com so that you can practice.
Well, there's
Yes.
the YouTube description notes as well. People can find the link.
Yeah, you can just draw an outline, and throughout the week or the day, just color or draw in, or again, just really deepen your understanding of what again, your somatic experience going through this world and this life and this journey. And A stands for your attitude and your actions, which is really the behavior. So my attitude is, what is my attitude? So if my default is worry, usually my attitude is, and my action in my body is, I'm a little bit more, my posture is not at its full, like, so I'm not supporting my body's function fully, right? Now I'm adding more stress on my body because I'm in a defeatist posture, which means that my good habits are going out of the window. I'm not drinking water. I'm not breathing properly, right? I'm sitting in this remuneration of my thoughts and my worry. And what is the action that follows the attitude? Usually the action is a bunch of those things, right? Our good habits goes out of the window. We talk ourselves out of good opportunities. We talk ourselves out of our full humanity as well. We also berate and down, beat up on ourselves when we have those thoughts, when really all we're doing is that we're just giving ourselves the gift of being fully human, right? Like it's so sad sometimes when you think about it. And this is why for me, the rest of the days I'm here in this body, hopefully I'm here for another good 40, 50 years, because I got still living to do, is to give Karlyn as much love as possible. So what I have done is to replace my negative worry default talk with, I love you, Karlyn, and you're doing okay. Oh, I love you, Karlyn, you're doing all right. Oh, I love you, Karl. So I keep saying that. And if something else comes up, I add it. So I would say start there. And remember, that is success. That's another thing I really want to show the success system, is that success isn't just how much money you make, your role. This is why so many of us are feeling not good enough, because the silent battles that we have won, society doesn't celebrate it. Society doesn't care that Shelby and Karlyn can now recognize the ways that they are continuing to not just colonize ourselves, or actively participating in it. I don't think we can ever fully decolonize our whole selves and workers in the society we live in, but we can choose to show up differently. And when you and I choose to show up differently from ancestral wisdom and our cultural practices and traditions that ground us and support us in this life and in this work, the world doesn't cheer. We don't get a pat on the back, right? If anything, we get, oh, that's weird. And why do you want to bring those things in here? Or, what is the smell? Or, like all of them, what is this bright colors that you all wear? Like, there are so many negative stereotypes, but I say the way for us to drown that is for us to amplify our ancestral culture, values, and norms and traditions. We literally are the culture, and we need to create it.
Woo! Yes, yes, Carl. We need to create it.
Yeah, I mean, we are, right? Simply by being here, we are. And I see such a beautiful expression of that in your work, like your new website and your photos. Those photos give me so much life, so much fire, so much joy, so much passion. Imagine if you tried to fit in corporate's definition of what a passion coach is or who you should be, as she'll be, a multifaceted, amazing, brilliant human being. The world would be bereft from this beautiful expression of who you are. And same for me, right?
And you, as a fire walker, the one who walks on fire, and I think this is also why you and I get along so well, is we have an affinity and dance with fire. I know also the language you use around your passion is you're passionate for change, passion for change. And you use the line, inclusion is not a noun, but a verb, as part of your framing for the work you do around DE&I in the corporate spaces. And I'm wondering, how did you get to clarity? You said confusion is an invitation. So let's say from the place of confusion, which often we can be in, to such clarity on what you're passionate about, and then be able to practice that with people, organizations, companies. What was that process or journey like?
Yeah, such a rocky road, and one that can fuel your worry and doubt or anxiety, or it can fuel and nurture your curiosity, your compassion, and your courage. Right. So for me, action was a differentiator. And no matter what road we're at, if we don't move, we don't get to create a new reality. We don't get to create that new change. So the first thing I would say is that you have to choose a path and go. Even the path you're not fully sure about, it's better than staying stuck where you are. So the first thing is just take a road and start walking. So for me, that was the beginning of it. And it started with like lunch and grow sessions at work and writing, encouraging notes to my staff and my team, and they sharing it with others. And then, things just took its own path. But even with the leap to equity, to be honest, in 2019, I remember I went home and I had this death rebirth, of Karlyn. Like I felt this really deep, when you're called and it's like, I need to go home. I need to be in St. Lucian soil. Like she was calling me. And I remember when I went home and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this work anymore because it's very toxic in the sense that there's a lot of exclusion because we don't even name the systems in this work. Corporate Canada and the world at large, majority of them are still afraid. I mean, we've seen a shift, absolutely, but folks are still afraid of using the right language. And a lot of the individuals who dominate the DEI space happen to be white folks who continue to maintain the status quo as opposed to disrupting it. So for me, I felt like I was always walking on eggshells. It's like, you cannot address the elephant in the room. You're talking about exclusion, but you can't name white body supremacy. You can't name cis heteronormative patriarchy. You can't name colonization. You can't name any of those systems. So I was like, it was done. And then, of course, we know what happened in 2020. And in 2020, when it happened, and it happened during a very rough time because my husband's father, unfortunately, he passed away from cancer, but he just got diagnosed, and it was very quick. Nobody knew. So this was happening, and then George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd happened. And I remember asking myself, do I have enough capacity to give? Because it was a lot of support, of course, on my husband's side, on the family side, but also my work became very demanding because now everybody wanted some sort of information and whatnot. But I had to take a step back and I asked myself, how can I add value? And I went to my ancestors and my guides and I said, what is the message you would like me to give or deliver in this moment in time? And I said, guide me. And this is where leap to equity came in, right? I'm like, how do I give people an EQ-based, emotional intelligence, brain-based framework that can help support and guide them? Because a lot of the leaders, they honestly don't know. They themselves, their leadership education isn't complete. But a lot of them are still in that unconscious incompetence perspective where they don't even know what they don't know. But we continue to hold those leaders on a pedestal without giving them an opportunity for them to practice grace and humility. Right? Because in this DEI work, or what I call it Jedi work, because justice needs to be at the forefront, Humility and grace needs to be at the center. And this is not giving anyone a pass, but acknowledging that you need this in order for you to create sustainable change. So LEAP became that conversation. It became the framework. It became a tool for change. And this is how I started leading the conversation throughout. And fast forward to where we are today, we're launching a certification program now to give folks in-house the support that they need. But what's really exciting about this new certification program that we're launching in terms of giving folks the support and the coaching and the training to continue those conversations within their organizations is that every organization who invests in our program, they automatically generate a scholarship for us to take a Black woman and take her through our ancestral leadership, emotional intelligence, and neuro-based coaching, leadership coaching.
Oh, I like that model. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to your question, how did that the confusion, that curiosity, and also part of my not confusion, but I would say part of the thing I was grappling with too was I felt like I failed, Black women and Black folks, because you do all those listening circles and sessions, but they go back into corporate. They don't have that psychological safety, right? Because everybody's on their learning journey. How can we better protect them? So this was my way of, again, taking that, going through it, and it's through the teaching, through the learning, through the feedback, from my clients and the people I work with, we came to that end conclusion of the Leap to Equity certification program, which is focused on creating Leap culture creators. So action, take that action in doubt, take that action and just start walking and trust that your guides, your ancestors, your circle will show up and support you when you need it the most.
That is a wonderful way for us to close this conversation. But I did have one final question that was part of it, and I have to ask it, is I remember when you were working on this framework. I remember, and you shared it with me, and where that was at and your dreams around it. And given your expertise and knowledge and different methodologies you use to support people to dream bigger into their purpose, what dream are you dreaming in this current moment?
Such a good question. What dream am I dreaming? The biggest dream for me, so as part of, again, and I hesitate using the word decolonize in my work, but that's the word that comes up right now. As part of me decentering whiteness, as part of my work, as you know, Shelby, with the Success Planner, the Success System, and a lot of the work that we do, I have intentionally reached out to Black, Indigenous women of color and to ask for their wisdom and to ask for their guidance, because we navigate a world that's not necessarily set up for us. So that means your brilliance and your knowledge of what it means to be powerful and strong and confident and passionate in this world, it tells me that, hey, you've got some superpowers that I need to know about so that I can add it to my well. So on the days when I don't feel inspired, I can look to the Shelbys of the world so that I can keep going. I want to take that to another level. So over the past 2 years, we've been creating a database of leadership excellence to show our collective impact through our work, whether that's our research, whether it's frameworks that you've developed, whether it's language, whether it's quotes, whatever it might be. So we're looking forward to launching publicly next year this database, and with it will come a very special newsletter that showcases the brilliant stories of those women, but also tools that you can use so that you can also decenter whiteness. Because if we're disrupting the status quo, you cannot keep using the same tools and the same frameworks that are incomplete because they don't necessarily take into account our lived experience and also our academic and our thoughts around what is needed to create a truer or more equitable world. And also, in order for us to also tackle the toxic feminism that exists within our society, because I believe when we women wake up and we understand our role, especially in this moment in time, there are so many of us already doing that work and doing that support, but it's not visible. So through our collective impact, that's the big dream I've been dreaming. It's coming together. We have a proof of concept, and I'm really, really, really excited to share that. And the other thing is my show. I'm working on a show called Cultural Connections, showcasing our connections through my favorite things, which is, research, food, fashion, stories, and really showing that collective wisdom through a Karlyn, way of doing things, whatever that is.
You've been doing it. You've been doing it, and you've been leading in that way. So I'm so, so, so grateful that you are leaning into and continuing to use your gifts, so many gifts that you have and your brilliance, with research, with translating complex ideas into tangible ways of understanding and being able to practice, but also, yes, your fashion and the ways that you embody your politics and your values through your fashion, as well as the things that bring you pleasure, the simple pleasures in life. Like I've seen you talk about them on through your storytelling platforms. And ultimately, as you have been teaching us, that stories are powerful and we can rewrite our own stories. So thank you so much for sharing so much today. And I'm so excited for your dreams to come alive, because they do. You have a long track record of that. So I'm looking forward to this show. And then
Thank you. Oh yeah, because you're going to be on it. And the last thing I want to say, Shells, is when we talk about continue to nurture our fire, what you I don't know if you want to say your year on here. I'm not shy about saying mine, but I was going to figure out what is your African, your medicine, your cosmology. What is your element from an African lens?
I would love that. Wait, so my year when I was born?
Yes.
Okay, 1988.
So you were born in 88. So you're, based on the African medicine wheel, you are 88. Hold on. So you are nature.
Oh.
You are nature, the fifth element. And the fifth element asks us to open to transformation in order to realize our true and authentic selves. And this is exactly what you're doing through passion. You're helping us to transform, and you're helping us to light and ignite that fire. So I just wanted to share that with you as part of our closing. And it's been such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for that, love.
Thank you for watching. If you're interested in exploring your passion, check out my website, shilby.com. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Firestart Chat.